Welcome to the Respectful Divorce Podcast. If you're considering a divorce, it's important to know that you have options for how you divorce. On the Respectful Divorce Podcast, we explore those options and provide advice from divorce professionals. On today's edition of the Respectful Divorce Podcast, we're talking with members of Collaborative Professionals of Washington. Joining us today are Tim Peterson, a mental health professional, Leslie Blackman, who is the immediate past president of CPW and an attorney, and Jenny Buska, who is a financial professional. Thank you all for joining us today.
Thanks, Tim. Glad to be here.
So let's begin, Tim, and I'll ask you. So, what is CPW, or Collaborative Professionals of Washington?
Tim, Collaborative Professionals of Washington is an organization that brings together collaboratively trained professionals to take you through the divorce process, to end an intimate relationship and move your family from one household into two households in a way that holds your family, allowing you to make the best decisions that you can for your family, all the while providing structure as you move and restructure your family.
So this collaborative process, Leslie, as an attorney, let me ask you, how is it different from the traditional divorce process that people think of about going to court and those kinds of things?
Yeah, that's a great question, Tim. The collaborative process brings the process into your own space outside of the litigation system. And so you're not in court arguing out your differences. You're not in court discussing things publicly. You're in a safe space that is created by the two attorneys, the financial neutral, and the coach that's on board. And we have respectful conversations. Everyone's interests are heard. And that's important because we're thinking about solutions that create safe households on all sides. We're not arguing that one person should have a bigger benefit than the other person, like often happens in litigation. It's really about respect and how we can get through this process, or how we can take these families through this process of divorce and end up with some really strong co-parenting skills and really strong communication skills on the other side.
So one of, I guess, the unique aspects of this is the role of the neutrals, of the divorce coach, the role that Tim Peterson, you play, and the role of the financial professional, a neutral financial professional. And Jenny, that's the role that you play. What do you do in the collaborative process of a divorce?
So I start off by gathering all the details, the information about the accounts, the numbers. That's my role. And then as we move through the process, the full team will go into brainstorming and help couples talk about turning one household into two, how to reach those goals financially with what's important for them to maintain. So as a neutral, I'm able to have those conversations, ask important questions without sounding positional for the clients.
And from what I understand, if you're in a traditional divorce process, you've got two financial people on either side, and so that there's a great advantage of having one that is in that neutral position. Is that right?
True. You're paying one professional and you're hearing the same information. So you're not getting two sets of values on a house, for example. And so everybody is in agreement, but we try to reach agreements. Yes.
And Tim, as a divorce coach, what does that mean that you do?
Oh, good question, Tim. I think for me and for the coaches that are out there, our job is to manage the emotional piece of this, to do some psychoeducation on what is best for kids, what is best for family. How do you walk through this? We psychoeducate on what does grief do and how are you stepping through grief and how grief might land on people differently. How to have kindness, compassion, and grace for each other through the process. how to step into each other's shoes and hear what the other person is saying. Fear is a big thing in divorce. How am I going to get through this? What does the other side look like? And so my job and our job as a team is to help them understand that this is a puzzle that we will put together. And as you solve puzzles, there's usually a way that you solve puzzles. Like I think about a jigsaw puzzle. You dump it out all on the table, then you turn them all over. That's the information gathering piece. And then you start to put all the edges together. And so then there starts to become structure of the puzzle. And you're looking at this piece as to how can I solve this, or how can we solve this together? And we as the team get to put structure around that. And my job is to help manage the emotional piece. It's also to show what conflict looks like in a healthy manner and in a functional manner, and then to manage that conflict as well as we move through.
So how do you do that in the process? How do you help to navigate through that conflict?
It's a lot about fear. It's a lot about the unknown. And underneath fear or underneath anger is typically some more emotion. So doing some exploration, or having the clients do some exploration about what is the motivation here, and then sort of uncovering that and saying, hey, how do we solve for that piece? This is something that you're not going to get in the court system. This isn't something that you're not going to get in a system that is more hierarchical, where a decision is going to be made for you. You actually get to sit down at the table and have conversation about what your fears are, or about, what you think the future might look like, or where you're blocked. And then you've got a full team to help uncover what that is and say, okay, that makes sense, because we all have all these emotions. And so my job is to help uncover that and to delve further into what does that emotion mean for you? What does that emotion, how is that bubbling up? And is there something that we can do to help calm that, to help assuage those fears, and to allow that person, their prefrontal cortex of their brain, to come back up online, so they're not just walking through this as their amygdala or as their emotion pushing through, that we actually put structure around this and hold that space for them to make those decisions. We go at the pace of the client to allow them time and energy to be able to process all of this.
So, Leslie, as an attorney, you have to have a different mindset from your role as an attorney if you're going to court. Is that right?
It is a shift that needs to happen when attorneys decide that they are going to move from a litigation practice to a collaborative practice. And that shift is really about the whole container, about the whole process. We want our clients to learn how to speak for themselves in meetings. So in court, the attorney is doing all the talking. A lot of the times, attorneys do a lot of the drafting of declarations and things like that. But in collaborative, we're really coaching our clients through how can you come into this space and ask for the things that you need out of this process. And as Tim Peterson was mentioning, how can you express your fears within this process and feel safe doing so? And it is a shift in the conversations that we have with our clients. It's a shift in how we're going to get to resolution. A lot of times in litigation, we say start really high so that you can meet in the middle. In collaborative, we start with a reasonable. And that gets both parties closer together. And that creates a little bit more reasonableness in the negotiation process that's involved in collaborative. Nobody's walking in playing the standard negotiation game, right? We're really starting from a place of what is reasonable, what's going to meet your high-end goals here, and are they also going to meet the other party's high-end goals? and then the children's schools too. So we're really looking at it from a holistic point of view, and rather than a single perspective, or trying to position a client in their best possible position.
So, can any family law attorney be a collaborative attorney, or do you really have to have been collaboratively trained?
You really have to go through the collaborative training. That is important to help you with that paradigm shift that we talk about, getting involved with other collaborative attorneys, watching how this works. You can shadow cases, which I think is really important, because it is a shift, and you have to make that shift in order for the whole team to work effectively. And so it's important that you have collaborative training. It's important that you also have mediation training. That mediation training gives you some of those skills around looking at interests and values.
So, Jenny, one of the things that I've heard about your role has been that you really kind of helped to deal with some of those fears that Tim was talking about of what things will look like afterwards, because you're able to sort of lay out some financial models that people can understand what their finances are going to look like.
Right. Yes. That's throughout the process, we'll come up with maybe 1 or 2 or 3 different scenarios that people can look at, and maybe we have it on paper, and so they can tangibly see, okay, if we do things in one way versus the other, depending on whose column it goes into, how does this look? And not only that, but if we're looking at refinancing a home, or possibly buying a home in the future, what do future payments potentially look at? And how does that affect their affordability of living on their own, with their own expenses? So absolutely.
So let me ask each of you, and Jenny, I'll let you go first. What attracted you to this collaborative process?
I like working with couples together and helping them reach agreements together. I find that understanding what their point of view is, where they're coming from, is important, and helping them reach those goals and I like working with the attorneys too. I like the full team. I like the mental health professionals, our divorce coaches that are on it. Everybody has their role. And oftentimes when clients come to me and I'm working with them, they have legal questions, and I can't answer those questions. So the collaborative team, it's the full meal deal. And I love working on a team.
Tim, what about you? What attracted you to collaborative?
Tim, I'm going to date myself. When I'm a kid, I grew up in the 70s and the 80s. And then I'll just say a little bit in the 90s, because I don't want to age myself that much. When I was growing up, I saw so many families that were really injured by divorce. I saw kids that would end up being with their mom full time, that would spend every other weekend with their dads. And, oftentimes the moms would be in abject poverty and the dads would be living a high life. And that's not a judgment on those people, but what it shows is the trauma that divorce can cause when someone is making a decision for you, especially when it goes through the court system, especially when you're putting kids on the stand. So, I'm watching people my age still affected by their divorce, still affected by their parents' divorce. Let me say that. And so it made sense to me that we could do this in a much softer, easier way, really helping folks understand, how do you go through this process, and how do you not send the child support payment in check form in the breast pocket of the kid as he gets dropped off at mom's house? How do you not put the kids in the middle? So that was the impetus for me to start doing this work. And then I will echo what Jenny says, which is I love working in a team and putting structure around families like this.
And Leslie, what attracted you to collaborative?
I'm one of those families that Tim spoke about, and he and I are about the same age. So, early 70s and 80s. And I grew up with some significant parental alienation going on. And kids need their parents, and they need strong relationships with their parents, as long as their parents are healthy parents, right? And to be able to create scenarios in which children's needs are considered and are top of mind, and are heard is rewarding to me, because it can set families in a different direction than the one that I had growing up. And so for me, it does get a little more personal based on my history. Also, as a solo practitioner, I echo Tim and Jenny. The team environment relieves some of the pressure. I don't have to be the person they lean on for all of their fears. I don't have to be the person answering all the financial questions. I can stick in my role and say things like, you know what, that's a really good question for Jenny, and let's bring that up in the next joint session. Or that's a really good parenting question for Tim, and I want you to bring that up when you meet with Tim. And it is helpful that we all have our specialties, and that we're able to lean on each other.
Tim, you told me a story last summer about how one of the legends of the collaborative movement, particularly in Washington, Kevin Scudder, brought you to collaborative. And Kevin passed away this summer. Talk a little bit of what Kevin did for you and for the collaborative movement in Washington.
Yeah, he's definitely he was a mentor. He was a dear friend, and he's the one that he's the one that pushed me on into some of these leadership positions for sure. Kevin was at heart wanting to help families. He was an amazing energy in really following process, making sure that process was there and that we followed it, and that we allowed these families to make these decisions. He was adamant that we walk through the process to keep the family safe, to also keep the ideals as clean as possible for these families. So, he was terrific in giving feedback to us in terms of, are we doing this correctly? He was terrific in receiving feedback. There'd be often times where he would come and sit in my office and say, what feedback do you have for me? And so to me, that means that someone is open and willing to hear and make changes in this. And that's what the collaborative process really is about, is can I, as a professional, can I take the feedback and can I morph in what I'm doing to really effectively help the clients? And he was a stalwart in doing that. So, his leadership was felt not only here in Washington, but he was involved in the International Academy of Collaborative Professionals, and just a terrific friend and mentor.
Yeah. Leslie and Jenny, I see both of you shaking your head in agreement. You have memories of Kevin that you would want to share?
I worked with him a little bit, and he just was amazing. Everything that Tim said, he was a wonderful mentor. He was a great teacher, and always the kindest words to say to me and to everybody on the team. It was a wonderful experience to work with him.
Yeah. Leslie?
I reflect on this conference that's coming up next week, and every conference I've been to, Kevin has been there as a force in the room and a peg presence in the room, always with a smile, always giving hugs, always, just asking people, how are you doing? And this year is going to feel empty. He will be missed in the room this year. And, not walking in and not having that presence in the room is going to be a reminder to all of us to move forward with the work that he did and continue the collaborative process in Washington State in the vision that he embodied so well.
Yeah. So we are doing this podcast in advance of Divorce with Respect Week, which comes up March 4th through 8th. And it's an opportunity for people to do a 30-minute consultation to get more information about divorce, about the collaborative process. If somebody was going to schedule a consultation with you, how should they prepare for that consultation? Leslie, I'll start with you.
Really, I just want people to call, schedule the meeting. I have a tool online they can schedule through my website. And really, I just want them to show up to learn about collaborative. And if any questions come up, we can always talk about them second. But in that consultation, we talk through what are your options, what are your biggest fears. I get a little bit of information, just about them and about their partners and how they see their divorce going. So really, not a lot of preparation is needed. Just show up and be ready to learn about all of your options, including collaborative divorce.
Yeah. Tim, it's a different conversation with you. How should someone prepare for a conversation with a divorce coach?
I'm going to agree with Leslie on that. Just show up. Tell me, because it's really specific about each individual family. That's what collaborative allows, is for us to come around and put structure around a family. Every family is unique. And so this collaborative divorce allows us to tailor make what they need. So they just get to show up and say, this is what we have in terms of, or this is what our family structure looks like. And how can you help us move from one home into two? And what would that look like? And we can talk specifically about their family.
Jenny, if somebody's going to talk with you, do they need to bring their numbers with them or just, again, show up?
Yep, just exactly what Leslie and Tim said. Just show up. And if they already have decided on collaborative, I've already received a referral from the team and they want to bring me on. The question is, what have you been told and how can I fill in some blanks? Because usually there's questions. So I try to start with them and lead the conversation that way. And then I'll just fill in the blanks. And if it's somebody that has not talked with an attorney yet, the conversation is still very similar. It's just, let's have a conversation. I need to find out what you're looking for and see if I can help and how I can direct traffic a little bit.
Yeah. Leslie Blankman, Tim Peterson, Jenny Buska, thank you all for joining us on the podcast today.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks for having us.
So this reminder, the Divorce with Respect Week is March 4th through 8th. You can get more information or schedule an appointment with a member of the Collaborative Divorce Washington group by going to that website. You can also learn more about Collaborative Divorce in Washington by going to collaborativedivorcewashington.com. We'll put some links in the show notes for you as well. Once again, Divorce with Respect Week, March 4th through 8th. That website, divorcewithrespectweek.com. This is Tim Crouch reminding you that collaborative divorce is a better way to untie the knot.